clinical trials, drug development, it is a very, very challenging and complex business. It takes many people working together, good coordination in order to be successful. And fundamentally, that's the reason that we need to work with others. We need to communicate and have our voice heard. Why is that important? I think from the personal perspective, if your voice isn't heard, you may have potential contributions that are ignored, right? That are missing from the team. And also you may be under-recognized. From the team perspective, we know that based on Google research, for example, the best performing team, the biggest trait for the best performing team is that everybody has a voice, and if somebody's voice is missing, that means the team isn't performing at its best. So that way, I think you can look at it from the individual's perspective, from the team's perspective. It is important for everyone, of course, including ourselves, voice to be heard. Thank you. I'll stop there.
Thank you. Thank you, Jean.
I also echo what Jim mentioned. And the other thing, it's really, there's so much challenge and uncertainty in drug development. And I think one of the most tough part in drug development really is really how to make right decision. And this is where our statistician playing a pivotal role. So I think it's really important, we can help to shape make the right decision, and often decision was made, with limited, incomplete information, with huge uncertainty. And we also learn, sometimes, even you have the most state-art measure, sometimes really don't create impact unless, we can, have learned to change what actual team does or outcome we are looking for. So this is really I think why influence really matter for our statistician, but also for the quality of decision to be made, because every decision made during the drug development process eventually will impact whether you will get the medicine faster to patient. So this is really key. And if we don't actively engage in a lot of planning, evidence generation strategy or key go no go discussion, we may not be able to have our best input, and the team will also not be able to make the most appropriate or accurate decision. So this is really just have a good impact. I think the biggest gap we see is really, how we can translate this a lot of technical, innovation into a real decision impact. So I think this is really important, and that's why influence really matter. At the end of the day, not only we want to be a table, but also we want to help the table make a right decision. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Just that exactly we're here to dig into. Thank you both for the input. And I do have I know both of you have different stories. So I have questions for either individually for both of you. So for Dr. Jin Liu, I have a question from his experience. So the biometrics team at Regeneron at one point, right, had a reputation that was very, very busy, to the point that they might had impact the company to attract the good talent. But things have changed after Dr. like Jin Liu took over the leadership role. I want to ask you a question, like what you have done. How do you make this case to the upper management, and what finally moved the needle? This question for Dr. Jin Liu.
Sorry, I need to clarify a few things. First, the journey isn't done yet.
It's not that, yeah, okay.
I think we continue to be busy, sometimes still too busy. And we need to manage the workload, what I call the workload resource gap, even better. And to be honest, I was lucky that I had a CMO who was willing to listen, and try to be very transparent to him. Right? I told him my story. When the recruiter told me, called me and left me a voicemail about the position in Regeneron, I just completely ignored it. The only reason I talked to her was because I picked up the call by mistake. The fourth time she called me. Right? So the other part was being truly flexible in terms of what resources we can get, right? We can get employees, headcount for employees, we can get contractors, we can do staff aug, we can do outsourcing. All of these things, you need to manage them well, but all of these things will help the internal staff manage their workload. Another important thing internally, I think, is to change the culture, because after a while, we were almost proud of how much work we can do, how many tables we can generate, right? It is important that we can do more, but what's important in trying to change the culture is to look at what you produce, whether it's making impact, not just how many tables, the pure volume of the work. That makes a difference too. Getting rid of low value generation work, that helps. Another part, not necessary for workload, is making sure that people are doing something that's meaningful to them. Giving them learning opportunities, encouraging statisticians to do more research, give them exposure to different conferences, activities like this, makes the work more attractive. So I myself find that I don't mind to be busy, but I need to be happy with what I'm busy with. Yeah. The technology also helps. Like recently, we introduced, for example, R Shiny, which by itself can be very flexible. You can give the outputs to the other team members. They can explore, and one R Shiny app equals many tables. So that actually reduces the workload need for us. So we did a lot of things, I think, greatly reduce the stress that our folks have to be faced with. I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Jing Liu. Jing, so I remember at one point you told me that communication, which I'm interested to listen a little bit more, is the communication with a medical doctor or the CMO, that seems like they were not aware some of the work Statisticians has done is that important, so they want everything. But now you just said you want something actually deliver value, right? Instead of do everything. So how did that communication happen between you and the CMO? How did you influence?
I told him the story. I didn't want to come to Regeneron in the beginning. And the recruiter left me 3 voicemails, and I just, whenever I heard Regeneron, I just forget about it. So that poked his interest, right? Obviously, it is he wants Regeneron to do well. He wants to have a strong biometrics team, and having such a reputation. That's not what he wanted, right? So we have to align with management. He also didn't want too many statisticians, too many statistical work outsourced. We have to play that balance with him, negotiating maybe 20%, 25%. So I can increase the team size by 25% of contractor or staff aug statisticians. All of these things, I think, is thinking from his perspective, what he wants the organization to be.
Mm-hmm.
Often you'll find that our goals are aligned. We both
Mm-hmm.
want the biometrics team to be strong. And
Mm-hmm.
we both want to attract talents.
Okay. Great. Sounds like find a common ground and find a solution for that too.
Yep.
Okay, great. So next question is for Dr. Lin. So your team works across both clinical trial execution and statistical methodology. So methodology work could be more challenging, right, for cross-functional partners to understand than trial execution. So what does that make it harder to influence decisions, and how do you turn that into an advantage?
I think methodology, from my personal views, kind of follow into some of this meaningful self-development activity Jim mentioned. I also see this as a methodology, complex methodology, actually is a unique opportunity for us to have certain disproportionate impact. I mean, yes, it could be complex. Sometimes it's hard to cross-functional team to follow it, but it's also the place actually we can have some bigger or some more fundamental change on the outcome we are looking for, in terms of efficiency, confidence, or speed. So I think the key is not the methodology itself, it's how we frame it, right? When you talk about some complicated issue, but we definitely do not want to spend too much detail to describe to the cross-functional team, but more like you tie this with the objective or the goal you want to solve. Like for example, this complex methodology may help us to make a decision faster, or maybe we can make more confident decision with fewer patients, and this will immediately become more relevant to some of stakeholders, in what as team we want to achieve. So if we link methodology to business or clinical impact, I think conversation will actually move much faster. Not the complex methods, but really how this can solve the actual problem. And another thing, maybe you want to add it really, instead of present, final kind of result, or sometimes maybe perceive a black box, co-creation, involve this clinical or other cross-functional team member engaged to discuss the issue, how new measure can be more powerful. It really helps, because at the end of the day, it's really how we create a value. With sometimes it could be just really straightforward method, not necessarily have to be very complicated, advanced method. So it's really, complexity is not really, I would say, it's not a barrier. It's really how we engage, how we communicate, how we frame the use of the advanced method to solve the problem.
You summarized it very well. Thank you, Dr. Lin. So I heard from both of you that the influence isn't accidental. It's built, right, deliberately and over time through some specific choices, as Dr. Lin mentioned, about how to frame the question and how to engage the discussion with cross-functional team. it's very, very important. So let's talk about what might go wrong. So this question is for both of you as well. So what's the biggest mistake you see our statisticians make when trying to get leadership to act on their work or trying to get a cross-functional team to support them?
Dr. Lin, why don't you go first?
Thank you, T. So I kind of relate to previous question, sometimes we really should start with the problem or this or what kind of decision we want to influence first, instead of start from some technical uh, issue or measure, because I mean we have been trained very naturally in a rigorous way, right? In our training, in our graduate school, we oftentimes focus on the rigorousness of measure, how to come out and technically most advanced measure, but essentially, in a lot of practice, really the question is usually more about, what decision we try to make, how much confidence we need. So, and in many cases, it's really, we need to start with the objective or decision we want to influence, instead of start with measure itself. So because measures really help to make decision more efficient. And the second, I would say, sometimes we are so trained to be perfect, to want to give a perfect answer during a lot of conversation in a cross-functionally. But in reality, a lot of decision was made, based upon incomplete information, and then there is no time you will say you will have a perfect answer. So I think in a lot of conversation, in a lot of such kind of thing, it's really no need to wait, have all the information to give answers. It's really how to, how quantify and make it, actionable in a lot of, discussions. So I think it's really a shift from mindset, like, what's the most advanced measure, to the mindset, what it's uh, this decision we want to solve, and what we can do to help. So I think this is the part, I think more maybe more like, think about the issue. It's more like what kind of impact we want to help to have. I mean, at the end of the day, you really want to see what's the real impact we can bring to the table. So I think maybe this is a guiding principle, what kind of impact we want to, in a lot of decision, in a lot of deliverable, as a statistician, instead of what it's the fancy methodology we want to use. Yeah.
I agree. I think the number one thing is trying to make a purely technical argument for our proposal, for our opinion, for our position, right? And forgetting maybe the more important thing is to point out the business consequence, the scientific or clinical consequence, or the regulatory consequence. And trying to make that connection is very important. The second thing, making it simple. Right, I was in a situation where we had one phase 3 study done. The second phase 3 study, the clinical head faced the decision whether to call it off, so stop enrollment. The sample size would be right as planned, or take a couple of days. The enrollment was very fast, so we could get bigger sample size, slightly bigger sample size. He called me to his office and asked me, like, what should I do? I was like, Mike, the first study we got, it was significant. Everything was good. But the secondary endpoint that you really, really cared about, we were really lucky because if we had 2 fewer responders in the active group, there would not be statistical significance. So every patient you get will help a little bit. So the decision for him was very clear. 2 was very small. I want more sample size to protect the study. Very straightforward decision for him. So make it simple, make it understandable from the non-technical perspective.
Thank you both. Thank you both. Um, I think Dr. Jin Liu just shared an example where your team actually successfully influenced a critical decision, right? That's a very good story. And since both of you are a senior leader in your organization, you are not just influence individuals, you are also shaping how the entire statistical function is perceived within your organization. So, what is your strategy for that? And how do you know it's working?
Dr. Lin, you go ahead do first. Yeah.
Thank you, Ting, again. I think you put how much, this is a kind of similar experience, how, s- you know, start from being viewed as support function to a more being recognized as statistical partner, right? And I think, this really need a time, not only just doing advertisement, more um messaging branding alone. It's really, I would say maybe a couple things could make, a difference. One is more always, being involved earlier in a lot of strategy discussion is really helpful. Just like Jin shared, in the trial design stage, it's good to be involved, like your potential trial modification or design, looks like. And also, second is really, demonstrating, some real impact, like, either we accelerate a timeline or we help to make the right decision. Or deliver some tangible result to the organization to show the real impact. And this will help build our reputation and trust within the company. And also maintain, consistent, messaging, across teams. So I think, gradually, just like me, I spent majority time on oncology, and then I moved to a new therapeutic area for a totally new team, a totally new area in neuroscience, which I have no exposure before. But the principle kind of, I would say, I always follow similar principle. It's really, um, you know, be more engaged on those, discussion and have more demonstrated impact. And gradually, you will see, a statistician will be more and more often, be include a lot of key discussion, and the leader will more and more, proactively seek our perspective. I think, as time goes by, you will feel, you are, making a more like, I would say, not calling transformative, but at least you can see, you are being changed from being viewed as a supportive to more strategical partner to the company, to the senior management.
I agree. I think you got to be patient. It doesn't happen overnight. You have to build your credit, whether you meaning an individual or an organization, it'll take some time. And there are some basics that we all need to deliver, right? The high quality work, the normal deliverables, that comes first. And then you can build on top of that. To me, as your career progresses, or as you talk about organization, it is the skill of explaining complex statistical ideas, concepts to non-statisticians. That skill becomes more and more important, and that often, because in key meetings you probably don't have 2 or 3 minutes to speak, and you got to make sure that people understand what you are talking about, and that often makes a huge difference, because they want to understand statistics. They want to understand the statistical comments from FDA. If you can explain that well, you can explain the comments, the questions, and your proposed responses. It goes a long way to get the trust from senior management. Of course, the first thing is you got to do the basics right.
Thank you. So it sounds that the function level influence is long game, right? So it takes patience, time, and development. And let's bring back to the individual level for a moment. So what, as a leader, right? So what do you actually expect your statisticians when it comes to cross-functional influence, and how do you develop that capability in people who are technically very strong but struggle to get their voice heard outside the stats function?
Um, um, I think it depends on the stage of the individual. Earlier in his or her career, often it is lack of a forum because you feel you are too junior, and there is not a place for you to speak, right? So whether you want to create that opportunity, whether you want to, as a manager, to help such individuals to find the opportunity, is often creating a forum for this person to speak. Put yourself on the clinical study team's agenda. So there are maybe 10 minutes in that meeting. That agenda decides it's yours for you to and use it well, right? So creating that opportunity to speak often is more important for junior statisticians, right? For seniors, if you are already experienced and you're still having problem communicating with the team, there must be something wrong, right? And you have to reflect. And the number one thing I feel is the capability to listen, right? I often find people, I'm so eager to tell you my ideas, I forgot to listen to your position first. And it is very hard to move someone else if you don't know where that person comes from, if you don't understand his view or her view. So often it's actually not how you present yourself. It's first, did you even listen the other part to the other party carefully? So to me, I first look at the person, junior, senior. Often they fall into different categories.
Yeah, I think this, exactly, I think listening as you grow more experience, be willing to incorporate, listen to other people's feedback is really critical. And I also see, technical strong actually is really absolutely, helped you in a lot of way. Not only more like a but it need to be, you know, you know, in companion with some, right mindset, right? Not just for the, sake of, technical, at the one, but more about, I think we discussed before, really problem driven, or what really matters, really what kind of decision you want to impact. This is something, we should constant asking. It's also kind of related to listen, because because sometimes we listen, we will get a better picture, idea, what kind of problem or outcome we can help to solve. That's really, it's more like a, have this, mindset. How does this change? I can help. So, and the learn this will help us to improve how we communicate the right decision, and also can also translate, well with resonate well with our cross-functional team, because we do not want to talk themes, and then people do not want, have no interest, no matter how fancy method we talk about. So this is, I think, would say, it's really helpful. It's really, listening, have this, problem-oriented mindset is really important. I mean, and then combined with your strong technical skill, is really can make things actually much, easier to have much bigger impact. So and I think, just like she mentioned, this really don't develop, automatically. You will learn as you continue to learn as you go. Like, you learn at each stage. Your learning probably will be different. Your junior, mid career, you will continue to learn this kind of at different stage. Will continue, because your exposure to cross-functional level, it will also be different. At the junior level, study team, later on you may be in the asset team level, and then you at the portfolio level, and then you would at like more executive, team level. So it's really it's always keep having this learning mindset, and in each stage, I always, think it's very helpful to seek, advice or mentor at a different level, because the skill sets, and also like how you communicate, work with, it's different at a different level. So I think in this kind of also is also seeking feedback, seeking mentoring. It's always it's more like a continual process, always helpful. Yeah, because I think at the end of the day, it's really uh, how we make impact. I would say this is really to to bring, like medicine faster, better to patients.
Great. Thank you both for the insight and advice for the statisticians. Last question, because for the discussion, we have 4 minutes left. So I want to ask a question like everybody cares about AI. So what, in your opinion, does AI strengthen or weaken the statistician's influence in drug development, and why?
I think, as we've seen many technology changes in the past few decades. They brought to our profession different degrees of impact, right? But statisticians and statistical input are still needed in clinical trials, despite all these changes. I don't think AI would be any different. It will have profound impact to how we work. It may even shift how we divide our responsibilities with other functions, right? For example, it could make it a lot easier for statisticians to get the right clinical background of the disease that you are working in, right? Learning becomes, particularly if you are motivated, and targeted learning becomes a lot easier. It may help us to get out of some of the work that we are doing today. Either some AI agent will be able to do it, or some other function will be able to take over to do it. So such change might happen, but we will always need the statisticians. There's the statistical ideas for clinical trials. I don't think it's going to do either way. Yeah. I'll stop there. Yeah.
So I see, really it actually could more strength the role of that, but only if we lean into it. So because we know AI had been playing transformative role in terms of how to increase speed, scale, but also bringing some kind of risk, misinterpretation, which is where I think our statistician can play even more bigger role, like make sure the validity of evidence, the translating the outcome in a more scientific way, to ensure scientific, credibility. So if we stay close to the science or decision making, it actually will AI itself can actually amplify our influence. So, but if we stay away or behind learning, actually we will have a risk being bypassed by different, because like now it's essentially all in every part of our society, in every part of pharmaceutical research and development. So it's really not I would say not that it will replace statistician, but really raise our expectation, how we can lead in proactive or more, playing an even bigger role to lead I'm not saying part of, I would say a lot of, like AI driven clinical development. I mean, I would say we probably statisticians are by training probably the best leader to guide the organization in this kind of transformation.
That's a very interesting point of view. Now it's time for the Q&A. I do have 2 questions now, and for all the audience, if you have more questions, please take this opportunity to put your questions in the Q&A session. Right now, I have 2 questions. One is for for Jean. So, with the development of AI, there is a pressure to improve the efficiency and cut human cost from shareholder and management. At the same time, it's also opportunity to let statisticians reduce some tedious work. How do you think of AI strategy for biometrics team?
Yeah, I think I'm lucky working for a company that's still growing very fast. In terms of how we use AI, the ultimate business goal is we will become more efficient, hopefully, if we do it right, that we don't have to increase the internal headcount as fast as the portfolio grows. So as we become more more efficient. We have established, my organization has established a clear AI strategy, at least for the near future, right? I think we are still very early in this transformation process. There's no need to jump on the bandwagon too systematically, too fast, right? So our strategy has been rested on two pillars. One, I call it the enlightened mass, right? Which means we educate the team members, make sure that everybody has some basic knowledge of AI. We equip everybody, make sure that at least everybody has and can properly install cloud code, for example. It's actually not that easy to get it on your laptop. So we make sure everybody has the tools. We make sure everybody has some basic understanding, and a few of the statisticians actually became really, really well versed in AI. So this is one pillar. Make sure that we call it enable the mass, that people are enabled. The other pillar was we pick a few small projects at the department level. We don't have enough resources to do everything that we want to do, right? We pick a few and start to work on them. For example, we pick a project that helps us to write documents. We pick a project that helps us to write computer code. We pick a project that helps us to write specs. Our group writes a lot of specs to accumulate experience for this year. That's what we are doing, and hopefully that can buy us a lot of experience for the future longer development. So let me summarize. One is to make sure everybody can contribute. Two, then we focus on a few selected projects to get experience. I think rushing in too fast probably is not the long-term most efficient way to do it.
Thank you, Jim, for that. To share the story from for AI development in Regeneron. The second question is for Dr. Jianchang Lin. So with the support AI, it seems like doing statistical methodology research and submitting manuscript is easier. How you think AI will transform the statistical methodology research in the next decade?
Is it easier?
Yeah. So I guess I probably answer similar to Jim, from two angles. First, really increase the efficiency. Like you running simulation, you write manuscript, some kind of typo checking. That part, the efficiency operation part, could be faster. But the second part, really the appropriate method, the most efficient method to solve the right problem. That part actually we need a new because new kind of thinking, because we also need to develop a new, which means we have a higher bar now to develop even better method to solve problem. The better method which could be more efficient, could be more automated or more robust. So this actually really need to incorporate some of some machine learning or other thinking into traditional biostat trial design and method. So it's kind of raise the bar how we develop a new methodology, because now not only just rely on some of traditional because you may have some more advanced tool developed by computer scientists. They also can be used to improve your clinical development plan, improve your PTS calculation, improve your like evidence, synthesis. So I think when we doing practice, we really want to, a lot of methods really developed by ourselves, statisticians, instead of, sometimes we use some of, tool developed outside our statistical field. So I think also at least in this regard, you actually raise the bar. We need to come out more, no, not only in the measure itself, but also maybe some more open, user-friendly platform to be able to, elevate broadly to organization. So yeah, I would say these two points, maybe it's efficiency in terms, traditional programming, coding, and manuscript writing, but also raise the bar when we pursue new methods.
Thank you, Dr. Lin. I have another question for Jean, Dr. Jean Liu. What's your suggestion for a lead stats to deal with cross-functional team where different requests or ideas coming from multiple functions cannot align and all point to or rely on stats to come up with a solution or proposal? What would be a professional way to deal with a team without compromise the relationship?
If I read the question, I feel there may be some concerns of damaging relationship, right? Because if you end up agreeing with one party, are you damaging relationship with the other party? Short term, maybe you will make some people unhappy. It sounds like you are in a situation that it's almost inevitable. But I think the key thing is have integrity, do the right thing using the right approach. I remember many years ago we were preparing for an advisory committee meeting, and the medical presenter, my colleague, during presentation, she showed the slide that she made herself, a different way of look at data, which I didn't agree. I said, and we got into a very strong argument. She truly wanted me to agree with her to present that slide that way. I remember telling her, look, you can present it this way, but if FDA challenges you, you cannot call me to defend. And if you call me, I would just say statistically, I cannot defend the numbers. She was really not happy, but I think long term, she understood we were both trying to do our best for the company. We had disagreeing on the slide didn't mean I don't like her. It's just we have a technical difference of opinion. So later, I left that company. When I resigned, she was the first one actually calling my cell phone, asking me, where are you going? And it's been really nice working together. So yes, short term, today you may make someone unhappy, but I think we should have the trust that as long as we are doing it for the right reason, people will eventually understand you, and you should eventually understand others too when they disagree with you.
Thank you, Jean, for that very valuable advice.
Don't change your position and try to compromise just because of a relationship perspective, right?
Do the right thing and with integrity. Thank you. We only have a few minutes. So for both of you, the panelists, I have last questions. So for someone early in their career, what is the single best investment they can make in their ability to influence?
Go ahead, Dr. Lin.
So I kind of relate to a lot of discussion we had before. Start with the problem or decision you want to solve or you want to influence, and then decide what method you want to use, and also be proactively engaging a lot of conversation. Could also be an easy way, to elevate you know your impact. So yeah.
I have a very simple message. I think if you just starting your career, um, if you are like joining this webinar, very good thing to do. There are many things that they all look non-statistical, non-technical. But if you can spend the time, try to reach out, try to cover them, try to get involved, and try to learn from others. Professional associations, activities like that, they train you in many other ways, and they also help you build potentially very useful network for yourself. So number one advice I have is get involved, get more involved.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much. So, Meng, do you have something to say before the end of the session?
I just wanted to thank Dr. Liu and Dr. Lin for great suggestions, for Helena for asking great questions. Learned a lot. So we are hoping for everyone still online. Don't be afraid for fill up our in-app survey. It's gonna help us a lot. Yeah, we're 1 minute away from the time. I hope everyone have a great weekend. Thanks so much again, our speakers.
Thank you.
And Helena.
Thank you. And
Thank
also
you.
thank you. And also want to thank you for our audience for your time. And hopefully you have something to walk away with today's discussion.
Yeah, thanks, Helena.
Yep.
Yeah, thanks
Thank you.
everyone.
Have a nice weekend. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye everyone.